Hey everybody, I just want to thank you for being here real quick. So this is a painting of the Kilauea Volcano that I am doing. This is actually recorded, and now I'm doing a voiceover because there's a lot of noise when I needed to record this, and the audio just, well, stunk. So I've sped it up to about twice the speed. So as you can see, it's a 31-minute video, which means the entire recording was about an hour long. And I wanted to go over some stuff, and I figured this was a little bit easier for doing the voiceover over it versus me painting it live and stuff. But anyway, so what I've done here is I've made a background. This is 8 by 10, and I've made a background of kind of a neutral darkish blue color, and now I'm going over it and laying some texture on top of it just to kind of add to stuff in the background. And some of this texture, quite a bit of it will be actually painted over, so you won't even notice it's there, but it's just kind of one of those layers for the cake, if you will. So, quick note, if you have my stencils from Gumroad that I originally made for Art Rage, they actually work in Rebelle 5. All you have to do is import them into the stencils folder, and then you can make sections of stencils like I've done. And I just divided them up into things like celestial, water, people, animals, that kind of stuff. And so that's what I did here. And so now what I'm doing is just kind of defining where I want my horizon line slightly with that lighter color going across. And you can see this texture here for it. Like I said, a lot of this is going to kind of fade into the background, but I wanted it to have it there just to kind of, again, add that a little bit of something to the picture. So this is going to be Kilauea at night. I've using a reference photo that I got from Envato, and just looking at it while I'm painting because I really wanted, I thought about, what's something interesting that we could do that would be a little different, and because a lot of people have been asking about, can you do something in Rebelle 5? And so I painted a picture recently that you may have seen that I put up on YouTube as a little short video. I was trying out the time-lapse recording for Rebelle, and it was okay. But I didn't record the actual process, and I was playing around, and I got some nice effects, and I wanted to kind of show that with some of these colors. And anyway, so I thought that, building up a painting in Rebelle 5 that was something different, like a volcano, we could talk about clouds, atmosphere, lighting especially, and getting that really hot looking light that you want for a volcano or a fire or something like that. So what I'm doing here is I'm grabbing, and I'm using just the, I don't have any custom brushes for Rebelle. I've actually been too busy playing around with the ones they already have. And there are enough free brushes over on Escape Motion's website that honestly, I don't know if I'm going to make any, but I might. So what I've done here is I've grabbed some of the color from the background, and I went a little bit lighter and made the light stuff there. I'm using the acrylic brush, which is basically the oil brush. It's just one version of it. And I'm laying in some quick, using the knife, the smooth knife, which is basically kind of a square brush, and laying in some rough shapes, and then pressing 4 and 3 on the keyboard allows me to blend as I'm painting. 4 especially blends. And so it's kind of a quick way. Instead of having to go up, select the blending tool, coming back, go back and forth. So you can just press 4, smudge it, come back, and it's just like working the oils in as you would on a traditional painting. So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm trying to get just a nice, interesting look to the clouds in the background, something that'll kind of stand out, because this is also going to be a play on complementary colors. So that's what I'm doing here as well, is getting this set up. So I've got these blue grays, and later the volcano, it's going to be yellows and oranges and reds, which really play off this dark bluish purple background. So now that I get some clouds built up here, I want to build a few more in the distance to kind of give some atmospheric perspective to everything, and start getting that laid out, and trying to just really kind of smudge in on the edges and soften it in the exact same way I would if I was doing a oil painting on canvas or something. And just trying to keep it loose. I don't want to get lost in the details here. So just kind of smearing it all in. Once I get everything kind of softened how I went back to another layer here and threw some blue into the background, some dark blues towards the top, some lighter blues towards the middle, because I wanted this to have kind of that feel of, it's dark, but it's not quite 100% night yet. It's just kind of fading in there. And so that's what I had here. And then I went to the star stencils and just airbrushed in some stars really quick so that I have just a night scene going on here. So see, as you can see, there's a quick night scene for the background. I'm also trying to do this way because all the stuff that I'm doing here in Rebelle, you could do in Art Rage. Okay, it's not necessarily one versus the other with this. It's just kind of which one you prefer. I like both. I like using both of them. I'll go back and forth between them and Procreate with no hesitation. So don't ever feel like it's going to be, oh, I have to use this one or I have to use that one. This one's better than that one. They all have their differences and they all have their things that are here and there that are better as far as like, this does watercolors better than Art Rage or Procreate. Procreate and Art Rage do the pen tool better than Rebelle. So, in my opinion. So that's just, I go back and forth between them. So what I'm doing here is I'm building up splotches of color to make up the foreground and the midground off in the distance. Not a lot of texture or detail in this because again it's dark and I don't want it to compete too much with the center focus, which will be the volcano. And so I'm just trying to lay it out. Now what I'm doing here is starting to build up the glow for the crater itself. So as you're doing this part, it's good to go with something like I have for this neutral peachish color and just being able to lay it in and then smudge it with using 4 and trying to get that look and feel. And I'm going for an oval here, just a rough shape. I actually will clean this up later, but I just wanted to get that kind of oval crater and then kind of blend the colors around. And that's the other thing too. I would take my same colors and I'll smear them around on the canvas somewhere else so it kind of ties everything together. But what I'm doing here with that colors for this is just adding, again, more splotches and stuff that'll be background texture. And using Alt to select colors as I go so that way I can get a nice blend and that color harmony as I'm going across. In this one I used about 7 layers. So I'm on layer 4 right now. Did a horrible thing that I don't normally do, which is I didn't manage my layers. I didn't put the names on them as I was painting this. So later on you'll see me trying to figure out where one spot is on a canvas and I can't find it at first. So these rocks are kind of going to be pointing straight down. So that's why my painting here, I'm doing these up and down strokes to get that feel of the rocks dropping off into the crater and just kind of smearing it in. And right now, very much still the underpainting, just trying to get some color on the canvas. That's going to be the beginning spots for what we need. And again, you'll see that I go back and forth from Alt of selecting color to painting it, to pressing 4 and smearing it, to selecting color, to painting it, to smearing it, to painting it, smearing it, and just kind of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and really just changing the size. Nothing crazy. I mean, again, in Art Rage, you could use the everlasting oil brush and do everything that I'm doing here. So don't be afraid to do this painting in Art Rage just because it's in Rebelle right now. But people were asking me to do some Rebelle paintings and specifically oil or acrylic brush, and so that's what I'm doing. But you can see by having that oval kind of shape and having these drop off, it gives that feeling that it kind of starts going down into everything. And then also having these rocks that kind of stick out past the ones behind them gives that feeling. So now that I've got that kind of roughed in, I want to start adding some of what's going to be the fire. So I took some of that same peachy color, brought it up in value so it's a little bit brighter. and then start smearing in and building up the direction for the gas, the fire, or whatever it is coming up out of the volcano. And this is just a matter of just taking it and doing light strokes coming up and then building on it. So that's the key to this too. If you want to get that glow that it has, you just take the color, bring the value up slightly so it's slightly brighter, and then switch a little bit over, going from the reds to the oranges to the yellows to the whites, with the white being the center of the flame and the brightest spot. And think about metal. When you heat metal up, it becomes white hot. Then as it cools down, it goes through the oranges and the reds until a dull red, until back to normal. And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm just using the smudging tool, or really I guess it's the blending tool, not the smudging tool. The smudging tool is the one with the finger pointing. But this is just the blending tool, and I'm just softly blending it out to get that kind of a wispy cloud of gas coming up out of everything. And I know I wanted to have this look like it was kind of wafting towards the viewer, kind of like the photo I was looking at from Envato. So what I'm doing here is kind of thinking about that cone that would be coming out towards the upper corners and then back down towards the volcano. So that's the way I'm designing this and painting it out. And again, as you're doing this, you see how I'm throwing some purples in, and I start throwing pinks in later, and I start throwing in these others. Those colors, like with this purple, they're all complementaries of one way or another. And so what I'm doing is putting them in there to kind of dull down some colors here and there where they hit, but at the same time make some others colors stand out, because complementary colors next to one another become really, they almost have a vibration to them. They're so, they play off of each other so well. Hence why they're called complementary. But you can see how by softening this, by putting those smudges of color and then smearing it out, it really gives that wispy kind of feel to it, and that movement of like you just caught this as the wind's blowing and pushing it around. So yeah, so here I'm just softening it out, grabbing more colors to go, more oranges and golds, and start messing around with it and smearing it. So I haven't used any of the pure pigment, switched it over to the pigment mode. I'm just using the standard RGB mode. And I also haven't used any layer effects at the moment. I do switch and use overlay to kind of give a punch to some of the colors. But for right now, I'm just standard painting like I would if I was on the canvas. Overlay is really kind of a glaze, like if you wanted to glaze on some highlights and stuff like that. The same for multiply, it's just glazing on some shadows. But I haven't used any of those right now. And I don't think I ever used multiply on this painting. I just used a little bit of the overlay. And then just kind of slowly laying in. And I'm thinking kind of about the shape of the smoke and stuff coming up through there. And as I lay it out, and then I just kind of go and soften it, making sure that I play around with the direction of the smudges. Because as these are further away from you, they're more vertical strokes, like to give that feeling of lift. And then as it comes towards you, it becomes kind of horizontal banana type strokes that it starts laying it towards you in that direction. So, I hope that makes sense. If you have questions about any of this, just ask. So So now I've got more of the oranges and the peaches put in here and starting to get that look. And so now what I want to do is start kind of punching up some of these colors here in just a few moments. As I've got all that laid in there and kind of blended together, you can see how it's starting to give you that feel of coming up over it. So now I want to add an overlay layer to really kind of punch some of the colors. And I'm just going to the airbrush tool and grabbing some of these yellows and oranges and kind of enhancing some of the color around it. So that way it gives that really nice feel of glow. And by going over it with this orange, it really brings out some of those reddish tones and peaches and stuff. So it's a great way to kind of add that drama. But see how that already starts to give it that feel of really glowing and hitting around it. And by using the airbrush, it gives it that soft fade. And so it can kind of punch up some of the colors. And then if I use white, it really makes the white glow. See? And so that's a fantastic way to just kind of get. Now that's not even a pure white. That's kind of almost a pinkish white. And so that's why it brings out some of the reds and stuff here and there. So that already makes it look hotter and more interesting. And then I want to start laying down for where I'm going to add some steam and gases coming up out of the stone and rock like it does. So that's kind of this part here. I'm just roughing this in, then I'll go back over it with the rubbing tool and kind of soften it, the blending tool. I'm curious to know if anybody that is here, if you've been to a volcano. I've always wanted to go be near one and see one up close. I'm also like, I don't want to end up being some sort of 90s cheap horror movie either. Because, you know, my luck, I get there and the whole thing would blow up. So now one of the things that as I'm putting all this in there and trying to grab more colors to lay in here, I needed a new layer to start defining some of these rocks on the inside so that they really have that feel of dropping off and grabbing some of the light on the edges. Oh, I just realized I think I do use one multiply layer for when I start adding rocks in the foreground. Because I use two stencils. I use my mountain rock stencil and I use my pebbles stencil. So again, right here, just kind of playing around with overlay to get some of that glow and some of that feel. And here's the pebbles. So when I first did this, I didn't realize I was still on the overlay layer. So I put this in here. And one of the things I do love about stencils in Rebelle was that right there, the border. So now I have that border around there and I can just paint willy-nilly. But I didn't realize I was on the overlay layer until after I did this. And I was sitting here looking at it and I have my other reference painting on the other monitor where I can see it. And I was sitting there going around it and I realized, oh, wait, I've got this here because I wanted to just paint over it and then erase the stones out of what I didn't need. So a quick undo and then a quick reborder it and add it another layer. Now I can go back in and just brush over these and add that layer of stones. And this is where I switched it to multiply so I can keep some of the under painting coming through those stones and just kind of let them blend in and add that texture. But see, it starts to really give that look. Now this right here, I just take the selection tool, select the area for the flame and for the crater, and then delete. And so now I've cleared those stone patterns out from there. And can just kind of continue to add stuff here and there and soften off some of those stones with erasing them. And it really kind of makes everything fade off into the background. So I think it turned out pretty cool. Now this right here, I realized that the crater was off, so I'm just adjusting the crater's oval. And that was, just real simple of selecting an oval tool, or the oval, and then inverting the selection so that the inside of the crater is protected, and then painting with the dark around it to kind of clean up some of the edges. And it really helps modify the perspective of the oval. Just a quick, easy way to do it. And then once I've got that done, I can just go back in and play around. And then this was where I brought in the mountain texture, because I wanted to rough up this foreground, but in a really kind of subtle way, so that, because I've seen pictures of volcanoes, like I said, I've never been to a volcano, but I'd love to go take a look at one, especially something like Kilauea. But then I just wanted to softly add in some of this stone kind of texture for that rough texture. One thing with the stencils I did notice, and I have noticed with Rebelle, that's kind of frustrating, is that when you right click on it to move it, or you click the space bar to drag, it can sometimes move the whole canvas. Anyway. So again, using the border selection, which is fantastic because it lets me just free will it and move it around and not have to worry about overspray. I just start stretching it and twisting it and turning it to lay in the texture for those rocks, which is kind of a dark color. And getting all of that kind of laid out and looking kind of cool. But see how that adds in that nice feeling of rocks and crevices and stuff, and makes it really quick and easy. Love stencils. Like I said, they're great for just time saving. I mean, I can paint all that as it is, and when digital it's a little bit more difficult, but why not just do it? Now this right here, this is where I'm trying to find this one section on this rock that I want to fix. And I did not label my layers, so it's driving me crazy. And I'm sitting here trying to flip through it, and I'll go, where is this layer? I know it's going to be one of these. And that's what I'm doing. So label your layers. Take your time to put your labels. I usually do, but I'm also gotten out the habit of working in a lot of layers, and I've got 7 here. Normally I'm working like 3 or 4. But anyway, I do finally find the layer I'm looking for, which turns out to be that one right there. And I just wanted to soften that background right there and make it lay out a little better. But I was like, it's this one. No, it's this one. No, it's this one. Oh, where is it? And so I finally found it, obviously. And so I just wanted to soften it out. And so the rest of this is really just trying to play around with the lighting, trying to play around with generating stuff, extra elements like the smoke, and things like that. So, but anyway, so I just let this play out. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, as always, leave them below, and just let me know. I'm more than happy to answer everything that I can. Okay, but enjoy the rest of the video and leave me some comments and questions and suggestions, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.